In April 2016, Gibraltar's rugby national and veteran sides embarked on a tour to Asia to compete against the Singaporean and Malaysian national sides.
The count's going to take each and every one of us.
Rugby has had a home in Gibraltar since the 19th century. From a humble start, the sport can now boast over 500 active players, starting with the kids in the minis section, right through to the veteran squads. The most popular local league is the Super Fours, consisting of 4 clubs which compete fiercely each year for the trophy. The Gibraltar Rugby Football Union chooses the best players from this league, as well as sourcing local students from abroad to proudly represent their nation in the national and veteran squads. These players are not professional, and most hold down day jobs as well as training a certain number of times a week. Internationally, Gibraltar has competed against Cyprus, Malta, Jersey, Israel, and now, thanks to the Asia Tour of 2016, Singapore and Malaysia. Unfortunately, Gibraltar is unable to compete at a European level due to several bureaucratic roadblocks, so international competitions have to be negotiated from further afield.
The whole purpose of the tour to Asia was basically we're finding it very difficult to get fixtures in Europe. Obviously, we're going through the rigmarole of constantly at lock-ons with Rugby Europe. We originally applied for our FIRA membership in November 2010. We're a sporting body, and we're rightfully trying to join a European body where our athletes can compete. We then had to go to Paris. We met in Paris with the legal from World Rugby and obviously the directors from Rugby Europe. There were a number of outstanding questions, so we had to answer those. Constantly jumping through hoops in terms of the questions that were coming back. Some of them were totally irrelevant to our membership. They were asking questions about the UN, etc., etc. We went through the whole setup of Gibraltar Rugby, insurance, number of players, what we're doing in the schools with our education and development. We presented, and within a couple of months, Spain had already objected to the body about our membership. The Asia Tour would have affected our FIRA membership, obviously in a positive light. And it all adds to the weight of Gibraltar Rugby being a credible rugby nation. We can beat Malta, we can beat Cyprus, we can beat Israel, we can compete with Singapore. And Malaysia, a step too far for us at the moment, but there's no doubt that with the right preparation and maybe different conditions because of the humidity, we can compete with them. And they're all ranked around 40 to 50, 55 in the world ranking. So that sort of gives us a feeling for where we're at on the global scale. We're just above mid-range in where we compete. We've tried to get fixtures against lesser nations, some of the Scandinavians, and they don't want to play us because A, we're too strong, and B, there's always the question of, are we allowed to play you? What's the status with you in Rugby Europe? So the point of playing Asia was, firstly, we've got contacts out there that helped us put the games on in Singapore. We got the Singapore fixture on, and we then thought, well, we're there for 6 days, 7 days. Let's get a second fixture and make the most of it. And that's where we went through our contacts with the Penguins Rugby Club, who come out and do all our education. So they do our level 1 coaching, level 1 officiating. And they do a lot of work in Asia and Southeast Asia. And they know the Malaysia setup very well, in particular Cobra Club, which is in Kuala Lumpur.
Let's go, the mic.
The preparation for the Asia was a long drawn out affair because we knew almost 2 years in advance that we were going. So in terms of the fundraising that the team needed to do were things that we started a long time ago. The actual physical and coaching preparation was about 9 months lead up before we went off to Asia. You two guys are working from the try line till just past the 15. Ram is working in between the two 15s. Yeah. That's why we've got the faster and fitter guys at the back and being the fourth man in the middle.
Okay, if they kick it really deep, okay, let's try and, if it's a back row or a 9 or something that catches the back, just try and move it to our kickers, okay, and then you decide you either move it on again and we chip it, okay, or we move it and we plug it down the corner. Okay, what do we need to put into there to take that straight on the plane? Structure, intensity.
Got to be clinical as well, boys.
Clinical. All right, fellas, we've got it there. You know, we've got literally 2 more plays, and then that's it for us to go on the plane. That's our last rugby session. Okay, so when we get back out, we'll start with. I'll tell you, we'll start with in a minute, and we'll go with that squad. We'll go with that team to start with, and then we'll play.
Quite a lot went into sort of the whole preparation for what was a big tour as far as getting everybody involved. But as players, it was mostly training and a bit of fundraising. We'd had a couple of sort of weekend training sessions where as many people as was physically possible came together. And then the core of the team, who are based in Gibraltar, were training I think 4 times a week from January through to April when we left.
Go, come on. No!
A lot of the lads who had organised everything had probably positions where they were playing on the field, so they were part of the national team. So I was there as extra hands to make sure things were done when they were on the field, to make sure everything ran quite smoothly. Prior to the tour, I helped them with preparing some of the transport logistics, also little things like crossing the T's and dotting the I's, like organising some of the ice boxes and ice flannels that the boys needed to cool down.
The veterans' preparations were mainly around trying to get us into a shape whereby we could tour to Asia. So in relation to that, it was making sure that we're all fit in terms of non-injuries, that we're all ready for the heat, ready for the challenge ahead. And basically we just spent a lot of time getting the ball through our hands in the weeks up to it to make sure that even though the Super 4's season had finished, that going into Asia we were as prepared as we could be.
We're in completely amateur setup. We're all either students or have full-time jobs, which obviously has a big bearing. We came across a couple of pros or semi-professional players in Malaysia, and you can really tell the difference of the quality and the physical conditioning some of these guys are in. We don't do badly, I don't think, for an amateur setup, but definitely more time you have on your hands to put towards conditioning and training, and working together as a unit is always going to help you.
How we prepared for Asia was predominantly with fitness because of humidity, because the playing conditions out there are that much different to what we're experiencing here. It's basically a very strong Levanta with mid-30s heat and dehydration, and muscle tiredness and fatigue comes in. Because the group has still been working with Sally Holmes 2 days a week. So we just stepped up the intensity and continued it through to our departure.
Okay, I'm the fitness and conditioning coach, and I do the stretching for the team. So they come to me for Sally sessions. We basically do all the fitness, weeks and weeks of fitness, and here on tour, been doing all the stretching and conditioning and getting them ready basically. We've got a couple of people that we're going to be doing rolling out with the foam rollers, and we're just going to be looking today when we do the warm-up, so we're going to have quite a good stretching session today. Stretching is really, really important, so we're going to start off with some static and then go into dynamic stretching.
So very early on we were talking with the national team and with the GRFU management, and what became obvious was that this was a great opportunity to give people a chance who in the future will be representing Gibraltar, which were the development team players. But because of the strength of the national team, there was going to be very few of them allowed to go. What we felt was that it would be more of a benefit to the GRFU to take some development players with the veterans, again old hands, old heads, and actually take them on tour, look after them, and also allow them to play with us, because the veterans rugby is actually quite a good level. It would be very tough for them, so it would be a good experience. And also getting to play with some of the older heads just kept their feet on the ground. So it was a joint decision really between the national team, the GRFU management and the veterans committee.
Yes!
So we were training twice a week, once as a veterans team and another doing the touch rugby. The touch rugby was really good because it got the ball through our hands, did some fitness, again agility, very important when you're a veteran because you're getting a bit older. And then once a week we tried to meet up to do some set moves and actually come up with some styles of play that we were going to do throughout the period in Singapore and Malaysia. So the development guys generally train on a Thursday with the touch rugby anyway. A lot of them come down, and also they go to the GRFU sessions on a Tuesday. So it was quite easy just to slot them into some of the sessions we were doing. We also encouraged them to train with the national team so that they got the best of both ends. So they were training with the national team, and when they weren't, they came over and trained with us. So we got quite a few sessions in with the boys, and they really started to understand our style of play and what we were trying to achieve.
You know, I think we should all take note of the development squad, the development players that aren't necessarily able to play in the fixtures because they haven't got the residency requirements yet, but they've still taken on board everything we've done. They turned up at every session. You know, they've still played in the game on Wednesday, but you know, they turned up, they've been part of our squad, they've been part of everything we're doing. So I think everyone needs to take note of what they've put in as well.
See what it's like. You're going to come up at half time again. Probably 40, 45, maybe 50, you know, okay.
Choosing the team is a bit of a difficult one because if you bear in mind that first of all we're all amateurs, so people have different job requirements, and then also a good number of our squad don't live in Gibraltar, so making sure that everybody's timetables worked wasn't an easy task. We also had 2 or 3 of the players who would have made the squad doing finals at university who are not available. So it meant that between national squad and development squad we're looking at about 40 possible players we could take, and between injuries and then people not being available we took the 30 that we did on the squad on the tour.
Like all team sports, unfortunately there are people who get picked and people who don't, and you can see that there's a disappointment. But I do feel that there were a few players who were perhaps on the bench or not picked who still made a point of being there for the squad and really backing, and that's the type of character you want on a tour, that they are very much part of the tour even though they're not physically playing, and they add a lot to the team spirit, and on tour they're usually good value.
You know, I've been really impressed with the mentality, the attitude, the commitment from a lot of players. Okay, it goes a long way when we're trying to build something, but trying to get a squad together, you know, an ethos that carries on after this tour, you know, the ethos that we want to try and be as professional as possible.
Joey, Teddy, Matt Gilly, Paulie, Rog, Rico, Killian, Seb, Hamish, Albert.
We build the strategies largely around the natural abilities of the team and the sort of players we have. We're not the biggest side in the world, so the strategy revolves around making sure that the forwards are tidy in winning the first face ball, so that's the scrums and the lineouts. We have to be competitive in the breakdown so that we can try and turn ball over. But then we've got a very exciting set of backs. So the overall strategy is playing to those strengths, playing to the speed and the fitness of the guys.
The youngest on tour has to carry our mascot. So if Matthew Isola could have the middle. There we go, right there. Give him a name. Warren.
So the Malaysia game was probably the one that I was dreading the most. I was fortunate that I'd been out there 2 weeks before with my family, so I was acclimatised. But I was very aware that the team were getting off the plane and literally playing within 16 hours, a really tough game in very hot weather.
I'm already pissed off. It's going to try away. Let's not get any more away.
The Malaysia team we knew were a new veterans team. They've only been going 12 to 18 months. Ourselves, we've only been going 4 years. So as a national veterans team, we knew that we were going to have a good chance against them because they didn't play together that much. However, we knew that a lot of them had just retired from the national team, so they were going to be very strong.
When we're tired, listen to people calling defence. We're switching off. We're tired, we've got our hands on our knees, and we're not moving. So while you've got your hands on your knees, listen to people in defence and move. And signal to them that you can hear them. Because at the moment, that's the difference. So that's it, boys. Up the effort, keep digging in deep, and we can win the game.
On the day, we were fortunate in that although it was hot and sunny, it was bearable and we had done our preparation. Kim Chang made sure we had lots of water and cooling aids to keep us in the game.
Did you see it? It's not that bad, we just need to get it.
A lot of the guys hadn't been to Asia before. Obviously, myself coming from the southern hemisphere, I knew how hot and humid Asia can get, especially that time of year. So I had organised some iced cloths to cool the boys down at any opportunity we could, just to try and make it a bit easier for them to play.
The game was always going to be very tight. This was mainly for two reasons. Firstly, we'd done our homework and we knew that their backs were very fast and very good, and we were not as confident. And secondly, we'd done our homework and we knew that our forwards were quite a strong pack and that we might be able to take them in the forwards. So we played a very closed out game intentionally for the first half, with just some passes out to the backs and allowing them to probe through the Malaysia side. The tries, from our point of view, didn't come as a surprise because we'd already seen before the game that we were trying to close them down in the forwards and then break it out so that we could have some really fast wingers like Adam Cook who could really go for and score. Probably the style of his try took us a bit by surprise. He's been scoring all year in the Super Fours, but it was a pretty special try to pick it up, have it kick back to him, chip over the top and then run it clean in through about 4 of them. Well, right at the end, it was like a dream come true. We'd actually run all the way from our line. All the backs had done the hard work for once. I've got to say, they were running it left and right, throwing around, really keeping the ball alive. The forwards were really rolling with them, and the development players were superb in that area of the pitch. They had the fitness, they had the youth, and we managed to get it all the way up to their try line. They then fumbled, and we got a 5-metre scrum. Something which I was excited about, being in the front row, but also because we've been dominant all day. So it was a great opportunity. The call came up from the backs that we were going to do a quick shove and then get it out and put it up through the centres and hopefully score. As it was, we got a dominant push and carried on pushing, and we pushed 5 metres over so that our captain and probably the man of the match, Chris Lyons, was able to drive over in one of his trademark tries. So a fantastic piece of work from every member of the squad. From the backs to the development boys to the big old monsters in the pack.
Once again, big congratulations to both Gibraltar Rugby and Malaysia all time.
Thank you very much.